This is the Mile High 5 podcast with Carl Jensen and Doug Cunnington. We have authentic conversations about the journey to FI, health, happiness, and some very odd tangents. We interview FI experts, side hustlers, people on their way to FI, and those who have reached the other side. Join us every week, and if you want the show notes and links and all that other stuff, head over to milehighfi.com.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Mile High 5 podcast. I am Carl Jensen with my co-host.
I'm Doug Cunnington.
Doug, so today we're going back to the Facebook Mailbag. We have a pretty nice Facebook group, and people ask us questions all the time. So today we're going to be talking about what jobs that I would DIY or that you should DIY. We're going to talk about relocating to a high cost of living area. We're going to be talking about Melanzana sweatpants, Roth conversions. But first, we have a question about live-in flipping.
And this one is from Sam and really directed at you, Carl, because you are an expert in this area. How important were the live-in flips and other real estate ventures that you and Mindy got into really kind of early in your journey? And how did that impact your success and overall net worth?
Sure. Well, I'll tell the backstory about this first. We had never intended to be live-in flippers. I was a white-collar guy, a computer programmer. I did a little bit of work with my dad as a kid. He was an electrician, but I did not enjoy it at the time, so I never intended to do it as an adult. When Mindy and I were living together, right around when we got married, we had an issue with the plumbing in our shower. Like anyone would do back then, I called up a plumber. He showed up. He said he was going to come back the next day to fix it. He never did. So I went to the library, figured out how to solve it myself. I think he wanted like $125. And I think I solved it for like $2. It was a washer from Home Depot. And that was it. I had to go out to the library to get a book. I'm old. This was pre-YouTube. So now the whole process would have been even more efficient. But it was at that point I thought, wow, this actually wasn't that hard. We should try to do some other work. So we did some tile work, cabinets, and eventually that just turned into a whole bunch of other things. But even then, we didn't know we wanted to live and flip. It was after we sold that first house with a plumbing issue and had done some minor stuff to it, but we sold it for $100,000 profit. And because of the tax code, this is the 2 out of 5 year rule, where if you live in it for 2 out of the 5 past years and have owned it for 2 of those past 5 years, you don't have to pay any capital gains. So we walked away with $100,000. And at my job, I was only making about a third of that before taxes. So I'm like, holy crap, we have to do this again. So we did it again and again and again. And right now we're wrapping up our 9th or 10th one. So that's the long story of how I became a flipper, even though I did not intend to do it. Back to Sam's original question. I actually wrote a post about this, and our gains from live and flipping, just what we gained from all this work, is about $1 million. And it's actually going to be a lot more than that because we still have a couple houses that we have not sold yet. So it's not an understatement to say, or an overstatement to say, it's the core of our net worth. We took the gains from these houses and either invested them or put it into our next house and worked our way up. So we definitely would only have a fraction of our current net worth if we did not do this.
Did it snowball over time, or was it kind of evenly split, like each one was roughly the same sort of margin percentage-wise, you know?
Yeah, they were all different. Some were better ideas than others. The worst one was we had a lake house that we bought, and we decided to put a second story on, so we outsourced part of that. But we did that in 2006, and you know what happened right after that. The luxury market, the floor fell out from under it, so that one wasn't so hot. But everyone was a little bit different. There was a couple we did that took probably 3 or 4 months of work, and there were others that took 6 or 7 years, like the lake house and our previous one here in Longmont.
So you had 9 or 10 of them, about $1 million. Sounds like some of them didn't work out. What percentage of we'll just call it 10 for even math or easy math. What percentage of them like worked out, and which ones were like kind of failures?
I think there was only one that we probably broke even or lost a little bit of money on, and that was the biggest one, that lake house. All the others were successes to varying degrees. And by success, I mean we made money from them, and more money than we would have if we just would have bought the house and held on to it. But with all that said, I don't think this is the right choice for everyone. There's two things I think people should take into consideration. One is it's very difficult to find and work with contractors. So if you don't have those kind of skills in your family or don't have good connections, you should try to maybe even establish those connections before you even buy the house, just because it is so hard to find workers. And maybe it's easy in other parts of the country, but I don't think so. I think there's a labor shortage. But on the flip side of that, if you are willing to do the work yourself, I think you could, that may not be a bad idea, because if you enjoy it, you're probably going to make even more money, because I think the labor is worth that much more just because it's so hard to get people. I don't know if I made any sense there.
Yeah, a little bit of sense. As much as I expect from you, Carl, this time of morning. So I'm just kidding. Yeah, you made plenty of sense. I do have some follow-up questions. One is not a question. I'm going to add a clip in here from a recent South Park episode that I sent to you, which really, it summarizes exactly what you said. The other thing is, you mentioned the lake house kind of broke even on paper, right?
Yes.
Okay. Otherwise, you guys did the due diligence, the market timing was right. You guys chose good homes to do this on. It sounds like you did not calculate any of your time into this, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to do that? Because on paper, it's like, oh, fuck, this is a slam dunk. $1 million, you were living there anyway. You learned a bunch of skills, but really it shaved years off your life. This dramatic, but it was a lot of work, right?
Oh, absolutely. And especially the lake house. If I could take that one back, I would in a second. And it's hard to do this, to have these kind of thoughts, because it's all in retrospect. If the economy did not go into the dump, we probably would have made hundreds of thousands off it. But even then, it turned into a nightmare. The contractors we hired to do some of the work were terrible. There was a horrible rainstorm in the middle of it where the wind blew all the tarps off, and then it rained like 12 inches in 24 hours. And there was rain coming through our ceiling fans and lights in the part of the house we were living in.
It's like a Three Stooges episode. You ever see that one? Where they're plumbers and they like hook the plumbing up to the light fixtures, and all through the house there's just like water coming out the light fixtures. You know this one?
Yeah, I think I do. That's pretty much it. Okay. Only worse in our case and not funny. But yeah, if you don't enjoy it, this is going to take your time. I remember having, we had a family member come over, and he's like, yeah, can I watch some TV? And I'm like, oh man, the TV's still in the box. And he's like, well, you moved here like 2 years ago. I'm like, yeah, we just don't have time for that type of thing. But I did get it out for him. And that's what I'm saying. If you don't really enjoy this, there's plenty of other ways to make money. And I would say, I think Doug, you'll strongly agree with this, is if this isn't for you or you're on the fence, you should strongly default to not doing it. VTSAX isn't going to cause water to come through your ceiling fan. It's not going to cause contractors to not show up. Set it and forget it, even though it might be a little bit less money. I also would not do this if you have kids or a lot of other obligations in your life. I did this when I had a full-time job, and I was working on the blog too. So between 40 hours a week at the job, maybe 50 hours, another 40 or 50 hours of this, and then 10 to 20 hours a week on the blog. Yeah, I think I went through a lot of sleep deprivation, which is not good.
So there's two sides to this one, and I had an opportunity for sort of a live-in flip situation, but I bought my house at the end of 2005. I've told the foreclosure story before, but it didn't work out. I did have the opportunity to fix up the house. It was built in like 1918, 1917, something like that. A lot of stuff needed to be done, and it would have been a perfect canvas to practice, because I'm sure the first few times that you did tile, it probably wasn't quite right. And you've gotten better over the probably dozens of bathrooms that you've retiled and stuff, right?
Sure.
So this brings us to our next question here from Patrick. So with all of Carl's DIY experience, what house projects would he now hire out, like flooring or tile or drywall or bathroom remodels, instead of spending the time doing it yourself?
Wow, that's a good one. And yeah, I've got two answers which might be diametrically opposed. But the first one is, if I could find good people, I would hire it all out because I need my time more than I need the money. If I were to back this up 10 years, I would say hire out stuff that you don't want to do that might be labor intensive. Like I don't like to be on a roof, especially in the summer. Roofs used to be cheap. They've gotten a little bit more expensive, but I would definitely still try to hire that out. Drywall sucks, so I'd definitely try to hire that out. The one thing I would not hire out, probably the number one thing, and this is going to be a controversial answer because it freaks people out more than anything else. Do you know what I'm going to say, Doug?
Yeah. Electricity, right?
Yeah, electricity. So a lot of people hate it. And my dad was an electrician, and he said a lot of electricians are assholes or prima donnas because they know people fear it, so they get like little god complexes and stuff like that. But the truth is, it's not that hard. Have you done any? You've done some electrical work, Doug, right? Like you've replaced outlets or something?
Yeah. A little bit here and there. And then I took like a shitload of electrical engineering classes. So we did some stuff where, you actually could get hurt. But so we went through a lot of safety procedures. That was about 20 years ago, but I'm pretty comfortable with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, too, just turn off the circuit, or if you are working on the circuit itself in the panel, turn off the whole thing to the house, and there is little to no risk. Again, just like investing, this is not professional advice. This is to amateur dudes talking about what you may or may not want to do. Consult an electrician, or at least consult YouTube and be safe. But
yeah, and there's a couple things. It's like capacitors, right? They store energy, right?
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you don't mess with capacitors, and then some transformers could be a little tricky. So those are in like old tube TVs or like amplifiers, like tube amplifiers. But generally, aside from capacitors and stuff, not advice, but those are the couple things, right? And turn off the circuit, right? Turn off the circuit.
Yeah, to turn off the circuit. It's super easy to work with, like install a new light fixture, or change the switch out, maybe put a dimmer in. None of these things are that hard. I even work with a panel now that used to freak me out a little bit, but I just installed an EV car charger like a month ago. And I don't know, it's kind of fun too. It's gratifying. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, so not too bad. So that's some stuff that you would do. Any other details about the DIY stuff?
One other one I would always do myself is plumbing, because at least here plumbers are very expensive and it's so easy to do now. It used to be more of a skill when you had to sweat copper and work with lead pipes and all this stuff, but now you just work with PVC or ABS for the waistlines. And most places, except in Chicago, I think, allow you to do PEX, which is great, super easy to do. And you'll save a ton of money. How about you, Doug? Is there anything you would do yourself? I know you had a project that went a little bit awry when you hired out a sink and the guy left a cardboard washer in there.
Right. Yeah. So we had a laundry sink installed, and basically they just left some of the packaging in between. I guess it's the sink basket, or is that what you call it? The sink basket that goes at the bottom, like the drain area. So yeah, there was just cardboard in there. And even with very little skill, I was like, I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be like plumber's putty or a gasket or a seal or whatever. Obviously not cardboard that just soaks through. They even came back. We were like, hey, this thing's leaking. Because as soon as I finished, I like plugged it up, filled it up with water to make sure it would hold. Because I don't trust them. So they came back and tightened it. And then later I looked closer and I was like, what the fuck? Like these guys didn't even look, completely incompetent. So there's a couple, like some light plumbing things I'm okay with, like some switches and some other things, adding a dimmer, putting in like a fan, stuff like that. Pretty good with all that kind of stuff. And I'm good with moving heavy things. So I did do the landscaping here. However, now that I've gotten it out of my system, depending on what else is going on, I maybe would just pay for that. But as you know, right, you've tried to hire out and get some help for things. It is hard to actually get a contractor to show up. So do you have any tips for finding good people to work with? You said, start your network early if you have the opportunity.
Yeah, the absolute best thing you can do is find recommendations from people who have had a successful experience. Like I was going to DIY the landscaping, and then you thankfully talked me out of it, which was great. God, that would have been a disaster trying to do that myself. But I got a good recommendation from someone, and he had used this person, and so did someone else. And they worked out great. Yeah, I can't think of anything beyond that. I guess the one thing I will say not to do is I've had terrible success hiring people off of Craigslist. There are a lot of bad people on there. Even if you get their recommendations, they're not going to give you a job that they know they screwed up. They're going to give you their brother or something like that. So I don't trust recommendations either. If you do need recommendations, what I say instead is, can you tell me about the last 3 jobs you did? And then they'll describe them. And then I'll say, okay, may I have the numbers or address so I can talk to those people? And I think that's a more reliable way to get a true sense of their work. Because, yeah, I mean, the other thing I'll say about this whole DIY stuff is there's a lot of people who just don't do good work. Every time I've tried to hire out, I don't think I've ever had someone do something better than I could. Now, granted, it's going to take me a lot more time, but no one cares about your house like you. This guy who's going to be in and out of there in 5 minutes doesn't give a shit. He just wants to get in and out of there and get paid.
That's certainly a high measuring stick, though. It's like, oh, could you do better? Of course you can, Carl. You're a skilled craftsman, right?
It depends. It's complicated.
So, and I mean, I don't have any specific, like real advice that you didn't already mention for finding people to work with. However, I will provide a business idea for any, especially like a young entrepreneur that's looking for business ideas. I would find some contractors and try to organize them. You work with the scheduling and you sell and you have like a high-end handyman business where it's like, we show up on time, we're not overbooked, it will be expensive, but when you call, I answer the phone and I talk to you and I can give you the answer or whatever. Because I think a lot of the issues are like with scheduling and the admin, and it's like a good handyman company, a good service, they probably are busy doing the work and they suck at the scheduling. So their schedule gets fucked up. They're estimating things improperly. So they just get like overbooked and then the whole thing falls apart. So what do you think about that? Is that a good business idea?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, especially if you can get someone maybe to handle the phone stuff so they don't have to, because the last thing you want to do in the middle of a job is to be answering the phone all the time, or maybe tell people that you have a window that you're going to call them back. Like, please leave a message, send an email, and I'll get back to you. I return phone calls in the evenings between 5 and 6, something like that.
Yep. And I think, yeah, an organized person, a good project manager should be able to like make it work a little bit better. And then the thing is, you would have to charge a premium, but I know we tried to call like several landscaping companies and only like 20% of them called us back at all. And then only one of them gave a quote, like, and actually showed up to give a quote. Yeah. So maybe it was the wrong time of year. I don't know. I'm not sure, but it's pretty tough these days. So, okay. Anything else on the DIY front?
The one final thing I'll say is, based on what you just said, a lot of the people that I've found that are actually good and who show up, like, don't really have an online presence. It's all word of mouth stuff. And a lot of them don't have good communication skills either, but they showed up and got it done. But it would have been hard to find them if I did not have the referral from someone else.
So we haven't recorded in a couple weeks, Carl. We had it scheduled 2 weeks ago, but you were sick, kind of like, I was thinking of Ferris Bueller the other day. You were like, oh, I could barely talk. And I'm like, is this guy really sick? I think he's trying to take a long weekend. So are you healthy now? What's going on?
Yeah, I was actually sick. I had too much excitement in my life, and a lot of it was concerts. My mom came into town, and she wanted to see Queen with Adam Lambert. Are you familiar with that show? And
not only because you told me about it, but yeah. I know Queen, but I don't know Adam Lambert very well.
Yeah, it was really good. Like, I'm not a huge Queen fan, but Adam Lambert is a great successor to Freddie Mercury. And I was thinking about you all while watching this show, because Brian May is a really great guitarist. Mm-hmm. He did a I was wondering if they're going to give him a solo, and they did, and it was super cool. Do you know he's an astrophysicist too?
I was about to ask you. Yeah, I didn't know that he has like a PhD in astronomy or whatever. Right?
Yeah, something to do with astrophysics, something that way beyond us. But they had like planets flying around when he was doing his solo. So I had that, and then like 5 or 6 days later, we went and saw Depeche Mode. So lots of late nights, which do not sit well with me, and I always get sick when I have lack of sleep.
Yeah,
so,
it was a lot. That is a tough thing with the concerts, and I know actually several of our friends and you have been going to more and more shows. And yeah, in my personal life, someone was like, "Hey, so what show would you go to if price was no object?" And I'm like, I don't know. There's so few. These concerts are so late. And it really, it takes like days to recover. So it really has to be worthwhile.
And the thing is, too, the thing I've thought of is a lot of these concerts like Queen and Depeche Mode, like their audience is old. If they knew their audience, it should be like an early bird special. They should have the show like at 5 p.m. or something, or maybe 6, let people get off work, forego the opening act. No one cares about that anyway. And just be done by like 8:30. Then we can all be in bed by 10, which is still a little bit later than I like to be in bed, but it would be better than like midnight or 1 a.m, which is a nightmare for me.
And it's rough too, because you end up, it's downtown or like at Red Rocks or something, which is fantastic that we have access to that. And it's really not that far. People like literally fly into the Denver area to go to Red Rocks. It's about an hour from here. And when you're leaving at 11:30, it's late. And, that's a late time to be on the road. And it's just not as fun as it used to be. Did you ever go out at that time where you took a nap at like 8 p.m. and you woke up at 10 and then you went out at like 11 and stayed out till 3 or something?
Yeah, of course. Like college, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we're way past that. And Mindy used to be a waitress and a bartender. And she said like they would close up at 2, but then there were bars that all the waitstaff would go to that were open till 4 a.m. and they would just close that out. I'm like, wow, I never got that extreme.
Yeah. When I think back to those younger years, like how much better I would have felt most days if I just got enough sleep, especially because like, I think I just would stay out and then I would like work the next day and like generally operate what I thought was fine. I'm sure I was like sleepwalking through my day.
Yeah. It's not good. But with all this said, I have another show on Saturday, but it's supposed to start at 8:30 and be done around 10.
Okay. What show is this?
This is U2 at the Sphere.
All right. That's cool.
Yeah, it's early and we can walk. It's like there's no parking. I guess parking is $125 there. And so we'll just walk back, hopefully be in bed by like 10:30, and that will be that.
Yeah. Ramit would have smacked your face if he heard you say, "Oh, parking. Who gives a shit about parking? You guys got the hotel. You just walk to it. Don't worry about the parking." But $120, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Get a fun. We could eat out for like a week if we just ate like Taco Bell.
I know. Yep.
That's nuts. So, okay, you're feeling better. That's great. It's good to have you back in the studio here. And you also got back from a trip. You guys had a little trip. You want to talk about that a little bit? Maybe like one highlight?
Yeah, real quick. We gave both of our girls, we said before you graduate from high school, you each can pick out a trip that you want to go on. And we'll pay for it within reason. Our younger one originally said the Maldives. How do you say that?
Maldives, I think.
Yeah. Anyway,
I don't know. Wrong person.
It's halfway around the world. I think she saw one Instagram reel on it and wanted to go there. So we're like, no, we're not being on a plane for 24 hours each way. So she picked New York City for her second trip, or her second choice. So we ended up going to there. One highlight, I'm trying to think what that would be. There were so many. We saw Paula Panther. Hi, Paula, if you're listening. That was cool. Went to a really good Italian restaurant. I guess one thing, there are two things that stand out. Sorry, Doug. One is they have an aircraft carrier in Hudson Bay right there. And they have a space shuttle there. So I saw that, and an SR-71, if you're familiar with that is.
No, I'm not.
Oh, really? It's the fastest plane in the world, like a Cold War spy plane. I saw that, and they had the new Tesla Cybertruck on display at a Tesla store in the Meatpacking District. So that was pretty interesting to see in person.
Oh, cool. Is that the first time you've been that up close, or?
No, I saw it at a couple at the Peterson Auto Museum and at the Tesla Gigafactory opening, but I've never seen it on the ground. This was the closest I've ever been to it, actually.
Okay. How close? Could you touch it?
No, they discouraged that. I probably could have, but I would have been kicked out and banned from that point. I was probably 3 feet away, but there was a crowd there. There were people waiting at the store. I got there right before it opened, and there was a crowd there waiting to get in to see that thing.
How much would one of those cost if you bought one? Can you just buy one?
Tomorrow we find out. It is going to be released tomorrow. I'm going to that party too. God, I'm not doing good on my sleep. But yeah, the speculation is the cheapest one will be around $50,000.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the normal price of a car, so I hear.
Yeah, but usually the way Tesla does it is the most expensive ones will be released first, so they can make the most money off the thing. So I suspect it'll be $80,000 to $100,000 for the initial ones.
Are you gonna go one?
Probably not.
Okay. My couple weeks have been less eventful overall. So no shows, no concerts, no travel. We stuck around here, and I've been getting into the routine. And for a little while, I was getting great sleep. The opposite of what you were talking about, is just going to bed early. It's getting dark early, just really settling into winter. It was great. And then at the time that we're recording this, it's close to Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving was last week. And I ate too much. I drank too much day over day. There's been a lot of little parties around here, which is really fun. But I did start drinking a lot more, kind of like the old days. I mean, I could feel it night over night. At first, it wasn't too bad. And then as my body got beat up a little bit, I could tell I wasn't sleeping as well. And then some of my heart rate metrics and stuff weren't as good. But I'm past that now. I turned the corner. I'm eating a little healthier again. I was counting calories, right? Per our fitness episode here recently. I still counted calories, but I've timed it so that, I cut calories a little bit, and then I've slowly added calories back to where I was. And I basically ate whatever I wanted. I had big plates of dessert. You saw me, right? I was eating crazy, right? But it all fit into my weekly calorie allotment, and everything was fine. I have not put on any weight, even though I've been eating and drinking like an asshole. Are
you a fan of the traditional Thanksgiving dinner?
Yes. Yeah, I love it. I actually smoked a couple turkeys for different gatherings, and love stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy. Really take the gravy seriously when I'm smoking the turkeys as well. And yeah, all the stuff, cranberry sauce, this and that. I made some cranberry sauce that I think you would hate. It's so I won't make you try it. But a lot of cranberry sauce calls for nutmeg. And I thought, well, if it has nutmeg, I could put a little, maybe a little ginger, maybe a little cinnamon. And then you end up essentially with a pumpkin spice cranberry sauce, which turns out people love. I didn't tell them there was that extra stuff in there. They were just like, oh, wow, there's a little something extra. But you would have been like, someone pumpkin spiced all over this thing, and it's no good. But it turned out fine.
I don't know. That actually sounds pretty good, Doug. I would definitely try that. And I had your stuffing at one of our events, and it was great. Your stuffing was fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah. And that was one where I made some 24-hour turkey stock, because I, had the bird. I was doing all this stuff, and yeah, really, it does make a difference. Also, I put a little extra butter in there. Don't tell anyone. I think that was the reason why people liked it.
You can't go wrong with butter. Yeah, it was really good. I love stuffing. I'll eat any and all stuffing in front of me. Even stovetop.
Stovetop. I was going to get stovetop, and yeah, I was talking to Mindy. It is it's a kind of a staple for a reason. You remember the commercials when we were kids, right? It's they were going to, I don't even remember how it goes, but the kid was going to get double stovetop or something, right?
Yeah.
So
I'll take quadruple.
And are you a mashed potatoes and gravy person too?
Oh, yeah. Oh, so good.
All the carbs. Yeah. Now, you're not a pumpkin pie person.
No.
So what pie do you go for that dinner? Yeah.
Pecan.
Pecan. That's the one. So you brought pies.
Yes.
Right. And the pecan was amazing. Really good. So how did you make that?
We went to Costco and I picked it up off the shelf, brought it to the self-checkout, and we like to make our own stuff, but we had just gotten back from New York City and there was no time to make a pie. But it was pretty good. Like Costco doesn't suck.
It is hard to beat any of their like pastries or desserts. It's very good. It's probably like 80%. And it's cheaper than if you bought the ingredients. Like pecans are fairly expensive. The rest of it's sugar, right? But pecans are fairly expensive. Their pumpkin pies are like $6 or something. They're huge, right? They're like 13 inches or something. Yeah. So it's hard to beat Costco. It's great to have them right next door. All right. Any other nonsense that we have on our agenda before we move into the next question here?
No, I think that's it. There might be a little bit more nonsense later, but yeah, let's get to the next question.
All right. This is from Lauren. So we want to know the opinions on relocating from a low cost of living area to a high cost of living area to be closer to outdoor activities that you love and find a community you identify with. Would you move, the move would require selling a house with a low interest rate and renting in a new state. So the questions are, should someone do it? And what tips do we have?
Yeah, so Doug, I find this one especially hard in the current environment because Lauren alluded to it. Like, I've got like a 2.75% interest rate, and now like banks will give you 5% on your money. So you actually like make money if you've had a mortgage for a while if you didn't pay it off. So that's a ball and chain that you have on yourself, an anchor. But I would say, without question, I think she totally should move if she's not happy with where she's at. Community adds so much joy, and it adds to my life so much that I think if you don't have it where you're at and you've tried to establish it there, that you should definitely move. Maybe give it a test run. I think she's got the right idea when she talks about renting, because maybe the new place won't work out. So she can rent it, take it for a test drive. Maybe interest rates will come down. But I would completely do this. I
highly recommend it too. I lived in Atlanta for most of my life, 35 years. I traveled out west and loved the mountains and thought, it'd be great if I could somehow move out to the Front Range area out here, or fill in the blank, like Montana. We eventually moved there. And it seemed so hard. Like I didn't know anyone in my circle that like did that without a job. The job kind of erases any of the risk, but highly recommend doing it. Making big decisions usually leads to something much more interesting than staying in the same place. I think there's a great video that Ramit actually published on YouTube recently that we could link up to on the pros and cons of buying a home versus renting. And when you do consider everything, it's not a slam dunk to buy a home. And renting, it could be, if you don't want to live in an apartment, like we wouldn't enjoy living in an apartment so much, but a lot of times you end up, not a lot of times, if you don't buy the home and you rent, you have a lot more flexibility for maybe relocating if you don't like the specific neighborhood or area that you're in. And then it gives you a little bit more flexibility to check out other places. So maybe you do move to like the Front Range area here in Colorado and you're like, you know what? Little cooler than I want. Let's check out Santa Fe. So you still have some of the same feel. You're at a higher elevation, but it's a little bit warmer in the winter just because it's further south. Or you can move further north if you like Montana or something like that, or Wyoming. So the key thing I would look at here, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, is how negative do you feel about the place that you're currently living? Because I've found, when you remove the negatives, and for me back in Atlanta, it was a lot of traffic and heat and humidity. And I sound like a baby talking about that. It's like, I had to drive in traffic and it's so hot. But I sweat. I like wearing shorts, And the thing is, it's so warm. Even the shorts don't provide enough relief. And you've said it before. There's always so much clothes that you could take off before you get in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, the South was generally negative for me. And I could see being there in the winter, but the summer is I just can't take it. And when I think of Texas, there's a lot of cool places in Texas, right? and there's a lot of stuff I like about Texas, but I don't think I could ever relocate there except for like the coldest months.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I agreed. Just on your weather, do you remember being in Austin for FinCon? I think we both got there a little bit early, and it changed while we were there, but the first day or two, it was just horrible. And I thought it would be great. Like, it's the end of September. Austin's going to be great, but it just sucked. Like the humidity and heat were overwhelming.
It's like 100 degrees. Yeah, it was rough. And I had a lot of walking. I met a couple people out, and I was walking like a couple miles in like the hot city streets, like right downtown. It was rough.
Yeah. So in that case, the only way you can remove the negative is to move. And I'm with you. I can't live in the South. I love to be outside. Like I want to be outside for multiple hours during the day. And since that's important to me, I can't live in a place like Las Vegas or Arizona or Florida. We were even in Orlando like a couple of years ago in December. And even that, I think it was unusually warm, but it was not comfortable.
Right. And quick disclaimer, a lot of love for the people down in the South. I know some people like it. They don't like the cold weather. So if that floats your boat, that's cool. We're not trying to tell you how to live your life. But Carl and I, we just sweat too much.
I think we're abnormal, actually, because most people would probably say, I hate snow and ice and I want to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Most people don't retire to North Dakota. They go the opposite direction, where you and I, we might end up there, or Alaska or something. Who knows?
Yeah. I say move further north. There's often less people. I mean, you can see it in the populations, right? Like fewer people move to Bozeman, Montana because it's cold for a lot of the year and it's darker. And I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
And there's less people, which is a great plus.
Yeah. It bodes well for our future. We'll be able to get some cheap real estate in Bozeman or Duluth or something like that.
All right. So I would highly consider it, even with some of the downside that you might face financially. In the long run, your happiness, especially if you can plug into a great community, that would be a good thing. It sounds like you might be looking for Longmont. So shoot us a message.
Yeah. I want to add a couple of things to it really quickly. It doesn't have to be a bad financial decision either. You could take all the money you had in your home equity and put it into an investment. And then if you're single, maybe try to find a cheap living arrangement. I met someone at a campfire who lives in Del Mar. Do you know what Del Mar is?
It means of the ocean or something, right?
Yeah, I think of the sea, maybe. I don't know. I should have paid attention in Spanish class, but he lives for $500 a month. And Del Mar is like San Diego, but a lot fancier. So it's really nice. And what he does is he turns over someone's Airbnb. So he's there full time. And that's all he does. So he got a super discount on this house. So you might be able to work out something like that. And if you really do want to own again, or even if you rent, you might be able to house hack your situation somehow, get a roommate or sublet or something like that. You're going to have to work harder, but I think all that stuff is worth it if you're going to be happier being in this different environment.
Nice. All right. We have one from Hallie.
Yeah, this one is for you. And I didn't know this product existed, even though I was still there. And if you stay on until the sound check, you'll hear more Melanzana talk. But this is about Melanzana. Has Doug tried Melanzana's Wind Pro Sweatpants? Is this a thing, or did they just make it up?
It's a real thing. So the Wind Pro Sweatpants are a little bit thicker. And it matches the thickness of the material you got for your Melly. And I have not tried them on personally, but I did pick some up for my wife, and she loves them. They're great for like lounging around and wearing around the house and stuff like that, especially in the winter. It's quite warm, super soft, and I think she loves them. She wears them probably 5 days a week or something currently, so highly recommend. I didn't have enough availability in my inventory that I could buy. So I didn't get any yet, but I think, that would help complete the, I have like 5 of these, right? So I have all the different versions, no pants yet. So it'll be the next thing to add.
It will happen for you at some point, Doug.
Soon. It'll happen soon. So, and would you consider getting, so you have an orange Melly, would you get matching? Would you get a whole orange suit?
I don't know. That would look kind of weird. I think I'd have to offset the color. I don't want to look like even more of a pumpkin than I already look like. That would I would stick out. I don't like to stick out. Like maybe black ones or dark gray or something like that.
Okay. Well, I think it would look very close to, was it Jim Carrey that wore the orange tuxedo in Dumb and Dumber,
Yeah,
or was it
I think you're
Harry?
right. I think Harry had the blue one.
Okay.
But I don't know. Or are we reversed? I have no idea. We should know this.
We'll have to, I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, me too.
But I think you got to go all in. Go all in on the orange.
I'll take it under consideration.
Okay. So we have a big question about Roth conversion. So I think we have enough time to run through it here. Carl, do you think we have enough time?
Yeah, sure. Let's go for it.
All right. This is from Claudia. And we may dive deeper because we're going to run through it pretty fast. So this is all about Roth conversions. So how would you do them when you have a mix of 401k, IRA, a Roth IRA, and a brokerage account? So Carl, do you want to talk about that before we move on to the next, or should we just like run through all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, maybe we should talk about what a Roth conversion is first. And we're not going to talk about the backdoor one, which is something completely different for high net worth people. To back up a second, a Roth IRA is where you contribute money post-tax to this investment thing, and your money is not taxed from that point on, which is the kind of the opposite of a 401k, which is tax sheltered initially, so you don't pay taxes on it when you contribute, but every dollar when you take out is taxed as ordinary income. When you take money out from the Roth, it is completely tax-free. The most famous example of this is Peter Thiel, who I think invested like $10,000 in Facebook, and then very early on, I think he was one of the original investors, and then it went to like $1 billion, a billion with a B, and all that money is tax-free for him. So a Roth can work out really great. And what Claudia is asking about is a Roth conversion. And this is when you take your 401k and you convert it to a Roth. When you do this, you have to pay taxes on it at the time as ordinary income. So if you convert $100,000, you pay $100,000. It's like getting $100,000 in income that's going to be taxed. But after that, this thing is tax-free from that point on. And I should stop for a second. Doug, anything I'm missing or anything we should elaborate on?
Nope. I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay. Let's see here. So I think we've got a couple more questions here, or a couple more things we'd like to talk about. And one is why you would do this. So there's a couple reasons I could think of that you would do this. Number one is from this point on, your investments are going to be tax-free. So once you contribute your 401k to your Roth, you're never going to have to pay taxes on it again. So if you expect a lot of future growth, all that is going to be tax-free. We use it to avoid staying off Medicaid. So we're on the ACA, but we don't make a ton of money. And I feel the ACA is pretty weird in that there's not a net worth question. So you could be worth $100 million, but still be on public aid because it's all about income. And if you don't have income, it forces you to Medicaid. So we convert so we can stay off Medicaid. And so that results in us paying more, but we feel a little bit better about doing it that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so we covered some stuff. And one of the questions here, and I'm going to read it the way Claudia phrased it, is like, how do you convert when you're still working, but you need to retire soon, or you're going to retire soon, and you want to minimize taxes now, but also in the future? And she's about 3 years until retirement. So one thing baked into the question here is like, I want to minimize taxes now and in the future. It turns out you can't have everything, right? So, I mean, you can minimize it as much as you can, but if you have like a relatively high income your last few years and you're retiring in 3 years, like you may not want to do any conversions until your income goes way down. Is that a good assumption? Yeah,
that would be the absolute worst time to do it. Like, let's say you're making $100,000 and you want to contribute $100,000. That second $100,000 is going to be taxed at the highest rate. So if at all possible, you'd want to wait till you are done working and have lesser income. So the ideal time to do this is when you have little income, not when you have a lot. I once had a job that had, it was called a compensation deferral program, where you could say, okay, I don't want to take half my pay, and then they would pay it to you at some future date, like after you retired. Have you ever heard of those kind of things, Doug?
Yeah, I think our friend Maggie over at it's like Inside Money, something or other. So one of our friends, I think she had a fairly significant deferral program, and my dad was a firefighter, and he had some deferred compensation set up as well.
So Claudia should look into see if that's offered, because that could help her do two things. It would give her some income in retirement, but it would also reduce her taxable income if she wants to get an early start on these Roth conversions.
And the one thing we didn't ask, and I don't think we have it on here, is the age of Claudia, right? So one thing you can do is convert over to a Roth, and then in 5 years, you're able to withdraw what you put in, the principal, right? No growth, but the principal.
Yep.
But you have to wait 5 years. The thing is, let's say you retire when you're 40, you have high income, you have to wait a little while until you actually retire and your income's lower, right? So you don't get that normal income tax rate, right? So you wait a little while until you retire, then you convert to the Roth, but then you have to wait like 5 years before you can get to that money without penalties and such, right?
Yes.
Did I describe that right?
Yes.
So it's all this shit. Then it starts getting a little bit complicated, right? And you're thinking about, well, I don't want to convert too much. There's only so much that you can convert anyway, right? But you have to watch a couple little things in here. So you stay off of Medicaid, you wait until you stop working, and then you start doing the conversions. And this is the case, right? I never thought it would work with an advisor, a fee-only advisor, but this kind of stuff is really valuable because we haven't seen it before. You probably only retire once. An advisor sees it all the time, and they could tell you, hey, you need to start doing your conversions at this time, and then in a few years, then you can start moving it over. And this is why Elizabeth and I, we have a decent amount of money in our post-tax brokerage account. While we don't get the same tax benefits, it gives us a huge amount of flexibility. And there's a great argument to have, a good chunk of your net worth in a post-tax account so that you can bridge the gap between 55, 59 and a half, whenever you could hit those retirement accounts, right? So this is tying it all in a bow, kind of. What did I miss?
No, I totally agree. It's good to have lots of different buckets to draw from so you can account for all these different situations, whether you want to stay off ACA, whether you're currently in a high tax or lower tax situation. And remember, for capital gains for a post-tax account, I think they start at like $85,000. So, and that doesn't mean you could just take $85,000 out. Those are just your gains. So if you invested $85,000 in a stock and it doubled, then you can take $170,000 out and be completely tax-free. And it's actually a little bit more than that because I did not account for the standard deduction. So I really like the idea of having all these things in different buckets so you can pull from them so you can pull from them in a way that best matches your situation or optimizes whatever your situation is at the time.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, best case scenario, like back in the day, when I first started working, I should have put as much as I could into a Roth. I opened one pretty early, but I didn't max it out. I didn't optimize it like what we would do nowadays, which I think that would be a great episode where you and I just say, hey, if we know everything that we know now, but we were 18 years old, how would you set things up?
Yeah.
So we could put that on the list.
Yeah, and generally speaking, if you make a ton of money, you probably want to err towards a 401k because you're reducing your taxable income. If you're in the 25% tax bracket and put $20,000 into a 401k, that's $5,000 you're saving in taxes. But if you're not making much money, like you just said early in your career, I would err towards a Roth.
And if you happen to own your own business or you're an entrepreneur, a solo 401k, like when you start looking into it, fucking blows everything away. Like it's really valuable.
Yep.
And you guys have one, right?
Yeah, we have. And we invest in a lot of income earning stuff. Like we currently have $600,000 in private loans out that we earn 12% interest and all that.
Crazy.
Interest. Yeah, it's like $6,000 a month and it's all in the tax shelter. So we don't have to pay any taxes on it at the moment.
Man, that's cool. All right. Anything else in here, Carl?
I guess the one other thing I'll say with these Roth conversions, you alluded to it with the 5-year waiting period. a lot of people will do this incrementally. They'll do like maybe 40,000 one year and then 40,000 the next year. That way they've got a ladder. After that 5-year hits, they'll have money they can pull from continuously.
Yep. And another reason to potentially have an advisor, maybe hourly or whatever, to help guide you through it, where the math isn't super hard, but you have to understand the ladder, and then you have to look at your other investments and when you can get to them. Maybe you do have some other stuff you can convert, or you have real estate that's producing income. So obviously you could just put a spreadsheet together and do this. But if you want to have due diligence done to like review a little bit closer, and that's why we talked to Travis and Eddie over at Downshift Financial, right?
Yep.
To help us out with the things that are a little more complicated that we've literally never done before and won't do again in the future. Yeah. So, all right, as we wrap up here, Carl, it's good to have you back. We can mention quickly the Buy Me a Coffee, which is the donation area to help keep the lights on here. There's actually a ton of lights here in the studio, and we share some extra stuff. Occasionally we post pictures from our, I think it's just like little cozy weekend vacations where we go riding, just Carl and myself, not the families. It's just a couple dudes hanging out. So we'll send some pictures from that. And what else do we do over there?
Yeah, sometimes I'll write a post. I haven't done it in a while because I've been busy with my house stuff, but as that comes to an end, we're going to focus on that more. And we've got some prizes if you're a certain donor. I think we send postcards out, and we're probably going to get some swag going. So we've got other stuff. We've got our t-shirts. So
we got new stickers here too. We got asparagus stickers and some other stuff on there too. So check it out if you want to help support the show. No pressure though. We'll still produce the show, but it just helps us out a little bit, really, to buy the t-shirts to give out to people, and then some stickers and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. And the stickers are real, as Doug said. I gave one to a friend. Shout out to Sean in New York. And he was like, wow, you really do have asparagus stickers. I thought you were just kidding about all that. Like, no, would we joke about asparagus? No, Sean, we would not joke about asparagus.
All right. Well, this was a good one. And if you do have questions out there, be sure to, you could put it on the video. You could go to the Facebook group. That really, there's a lot of activity there. I hear, I'm not a Facebook person, but you're wrangling and moderating and making sure everybody's cool in there, right?
Yeah. Well, lots of good people. We've only had, I don't think we've had any spam posts. I had one on my own 1,500 days, but yeah, everyone's good. All
right. Yeah. So we'll link up to that and all the stuff in the show notes. So thanks a lot. We'll catch you on the next episode.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the show. That was the Mile High 5 podcast, and I'm Doug Cunnington, the balder host, and Carl Jensen is the cool, sexy one. If you dig the show, please do 3 things for us. Number 1, tell a friend, a family member, an enemy about the show. We really don't care who you tell. Maybe forward them a specific show that you know that they will like. It's the single most helpful thing that you can do to spread the word. It's like giving us a virtual high five, and actually we don't give high fives in person, so the virtual kind's pretty good. And more importantly, your friend or family member or even your enemy will appreciate the fact that you were thinking of them. Number 2, make sure you're following or subscribed on your podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, whatever you're using, and that way you won't miss a show. And number 3, please leave us a rating and review. We read them on the show occasionally, and you might hear yours out there on an upcoming episode. Quick disclaimer, this show is not financial or legal advice. I'd actually be surprised if it sounded like it. It's really just for entertainment, and that's at least what we're hoping for. But seriously, get advice from professionals. Carl and I are just 2 guys with microphones that sit in my basement and talk. So we'll catch y'all next week. Carl, you just started to get into the Melanzana gear. So what's the story with that?
We were in Salida visiting a friend who is relocating there. Shout out to B. You know who you are. I don't think she listens, but super cool person. And I was looking at the map, and it looked like I could either go through Leadville on the way back or go a different way. And I kind of wanted to go through Leadville for a couple of reasons. It's a straighter shot. Not curvy roads. Mindy gets car sick. It's very scenic. We drove through there last time after our book. And reason number 3 was to stalk Melanzana, because ever since my failed attempt to buy merchandise from there when we were up there in the summer. I've been thinking about it, and I kind of wanted to see if they had any gear there. And maybe you could explain real quick what their deal is, how you purchase something from Melanzana.
So there's a shop in Leadville, and you have to make an appointment to be guaranteed merchandise. They do have some potential inventory where you could just walk in off the street, but typically when I've been in there, it's very rare to see anything where you could walk in and buy something. So you have to make an appointment on their website, and it's kind of clunky. It's like what you might imagine from, I don't know, 1997 or something like that. It's like a barely operable website, I think. The calendar loads slow. Everything's fine on the website. But anyway, you got to make an appointment. And typically, it's like 3 to 5 months out or something like that. I haven't looked in a little while. The last appointment that I had, it was like 4 months out. And when I went in there, they did have walk-in inventory available. However, and I tried to buy some stuff, some extra stuff. But if you have an appointment, you can't get the non-appointment inventory. So they really try to make sure, like, if you go in there, you're not buying like a million things and then like trying to sell them on eBay, because you cannot order them online. So that's the thing. It's kind of exclusive. It's all like made in Leadville, and it's all like, US source or locally sourced stuff. So,
yeah. And when I was there, Doug, just to be clear, the wait was 6 months. We were there in early November, and the next appointment they had, I think, was mid-May. So a little bit over 6 months.
I think like more people literally our small show, like I've seen more people wearing them like in our circle of friends, which they perhaps would have gotten them then anyway, because people wear them in Colorado. But like people are talking about it that we know.
Yeah, and it is recognizable. Mindy got stopped. She got a version. So just to back up a second, when we went in there, they did have some inventory merchandise, and it was a bit anxiety inducing because a bunch of other people had realized this too. So you kind of felt a sense of urgency, and you wanted to get something before it all sold out. But Mindy got I don't know if it's the typical kind, but like the variegated fabric, which has like a pattern on it.
It's like a grid.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like a grid, and that one is pretty recognizable. So she actually got called out in public, I think a couple times. Someone said, "Oh, nice Melly, nice Melanzana."
Yeah.
And a couple people complimented her on the podcast as well. So I think
already. Nice.
Yeah. I think that pattern kind of sticks out a little bit more than the plain old one.
It does, yeah. And then you got a different style. I have one of those too, but you got like, I think it's called a Wind Pro, and it's a little bit thicker fabric, right?
Yeah, I should have worn it. It's orange. I look like a big pumpkin when I wear it.
Yeah. I want to like sprinkle cinnamon on your head whenever I see it. It looks good. It's a good color. So, well, welcome to the club.
Thanks. I feel special.